Hi, good morning to and welcome to Indycar. Sorry, this is going to be a bit of a brief broadcast this morning. I'm sorry there's not been any warning before it, but I'm in a bit of a rush this morning. I've got work to do just shortly. So, briefly, the odds on a successful Brexit deal with the European Union have now dropped to nothing more than 50%. It's now clear from the comments being made by various politicians on the media this morning and by professional pundits and experts, political analysts, that nobody expects Mrs May's Brexit deal to be all that well received. Most people now expect Michel Barnier to reject this deal because, very simply put, it does not meet the requirements of the EU. They very clearly expressed what the requirements would be, and those would be that the UK, in order to have a proper trade deal, would need to still maintain the four freedoms, and that they will not do because of the red lines, which means there can't be a successful outcome to this particular so-called negotiation. It's not a negotiation. The British think it's a negotiation. The Europeans have been telling them repeatedly this is not a negotiation. These are the rules of the club. You either accept them or you don't get a deal. The British seem to think they are in some unique position to drive a bargain, where in fact 27 other countries have said, no, you're not in a position to drive a bargain, the rules are the rules. And so it looks like most politicians in England now are beginning to waken up and realise that we are heading over a cliff edge, and that it's as likely that we will have a no deal than we will have this bad deal. So it's either going to be a bad deal or a no deal. We now know almost for certain that the EU will probably say no to this deal because it never went far enough. It's a compromise, and you know what they say about a compromise. A compromise is a deal that nobody is happy with, and that is precisely what the Chequers agreement, for want of a better term, has been. And so I don't think it's going to serve anybody particularly well. Boris Johnson clearly not happy, and also David Davis, one of the chief architects of Brexit in the first place, has now left his post as well. I think they have done what they wanted to do, which was to bring us to the point of Brexit. It's now clear that it will either be a bad deal because the European Union is not going to cave in. They're not going to give Theresa May what she's asking for, because what's being proposed about making Ireland into a free trade zone is not going to happen either, because that places the rest of the UK at a disadvantage, and that's something which the DUP's 10 MPs have clearly stated that they will not tolerate, being treated as a different, in a different way from the rest of the UK. So in other words, Ireland is, according to Mrs May, being allowed to remain in the customs union and in the common market while the rest of us have to suffer. Not going to happen. The Irish won't have it. I dare say that the southern Irish government will not have it, because it means a border in the middle of the Irish Sea when it comes to dealing with the rest of the United Kingdom. Either that or everything has to go through Northern Ireland like a gigantic sort of trap door into the rest of the UK. And I cannot see the European Union allowing that. The border in Ireland is over 300 miles long. Now, the border across Scotland is something like 89 miles long. It's a much easier border to patrol in Scotland than it is in Ireland, and far less likely for human trafficking and other forms of smuggling to take place, which is exactly what this would be an invitation for people to do. So all of it seems completely unworkable. And the BBC is, joyfully just reporting whatever the Tories say, but not concentrating on any of these downsides. We're not being told all of the truth as usual. We're being given the polished up version, and none of the downsides are being reported. Clearly, this is a complete, it's not even a fudge, it's a dog's breakfast. It makes no sense to anybody. It's the very best compromise they could make out of this almighty guddle that they have got us into. My grandfather would have called this a fankle, getting yourself into a complete tangle where you can no longer do anything. And that is exactly what this is. I can't see this flying. And I think English politicians openly saying on the BBC this morning that there is now only a 50% chance of getting this deal accepted in Europe. Now that shows you just how uncertain they are of success. And I've noticed that even the Prime Minister has been saying in the Commons that they are making arrangements for a no-deal Brexit. Now that tells you also that they are now concerned that there will be a no-deal Brexit. Remember that there is now no transition. That's also not been spoken about. The transition has been quietly swept under the carpet by all of the media, but the point is there is no 20-month transition period now. Whatever happens on the 29th will happen suddenly. And if we're not ready for it, it will be chaotic. And I think that is exactly what Boris Johnson and Michael Gove and David Davis had originally planned, was for us to barge through, to break through this huge period of chaos and come out the other side free and clear. That was their intention all along. That is complete break from the European Union. That is you pulling out everything and detaching yourself completely and just accepting the hundreds and thousands of losses that will incur in terms of all of the different regulatory frameworks, all the different organisations which are torn apart, all the research and development which ends, all of the university exchanges which stop, all of the flights in and out of airports which will cease. Everything will just come to a complete stop on the 29th of March in the hard no-deal Brexit. And that is the real risk now. How much more evidence do we actually need to see before we can actually say that this is not what Scotland wants? We didn't vote for it. 62% of us voted against it. Are we really going to stay in the UK and allow this damage to be done to us? I don't think we should, and I don't think anybody in their right mind would want to do this. Nobody in any party seems keen on it now, and I would hope that people in Scotland who have previously voted no to independence will now reconsider in light of what is being prepared for us in the next few months, that we run the risk of a hard Brexit. This soft Brexit is not going to happen. It can't happen because it breaks the European Union's rules. It's not a negotiation. We are asking, basically begging, for a trade deal, and we're trying to do it on our terms, which the European Union cannot tolerate. The European Union is not like negotiating with a country. It's a club. It's a massive trading organisation, and it has fixed rules so that people outside the union do not have the benefits of being in it. And if we're going out of it, we lose the benefits of being in it. How much more clear does it need to be put? I don't get it. Why people in the UK do not understand that we're not negotiating with Europe. Europe is dictating what we will get. And that's as simple as it gets. In other news, just on a very brief note at the end of this programme, something happened just in the last few hours actually, which I didn't know about, which is that it's not been reported, but one or two Orange Lodges in the Glasgow area have actually folded. They've actually gone out of business very quietly. It's not been made public, and because they folded, they're not actually being allowed to go to Northern Ireland to march on the 12th of July. Now that's an interesting little factoid that nobody's reporting as well. It just goes to show you that enthusiasm for staying in the United Kingdom, I think, is waning, even amongst Orange Order members. The interest in being in the UK is fading away, and if the Orange Order is having trouble staying afloat in Glasgow, in the west of Scotland, then I think that's indicative of waning support for the UK now. It's draining away very, very rapidly. In the next few weeks, I think it will be completely gone. And as I say, the timing of the vote, however, whatever form it takes, the vote to leave the UK, whatever form that takes, it's not very far away now, because we've only got until about October really to decide this ourselves, because that's when the European Union will finally have had enough. The clock runs out officially on the 29th of March, but the time for the European Union to discuss Brexit finally runs out in October. So unless somebody can enlighten me as to some other different set of timescales, as far as I'm aware, the clock stops in October for Brexit, and we have to accept whatever is given to us in October and get ready and brace for impact on the 29th. Anyway, interesting times we're living through. I hope this information was useful to you this morning. Some of it, incidentally, has come from the BBC themselves. Some of it's come from the radio, where all kinds of different politicians from different UK parties have been making comments, all of them now looking very gloomy, all of them now accepting the fact that there's an equal chance of a no-deal Brexit now. Anyway, end of bulletin. I'll speak to you tomorrow. Bye for now.